All right, everybody, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. The day that we finally finish this absolutely beautiful, jam-packed, action-packed book called Dragonwings. We're going to be starting near the top of page 299, and we'll be finishing the book today. So, man, this is such a cool moment. Moonshadow and Windrider, the last time we read, thought that they were kind of like out of luck and everything was ruined and they couldn't afford rent and they didn't know what to do. And the next morning they wake up to a knock at their door, and who is there but the whole company. After 3 years of having moved away and not having a lot of communication with them, they show up, and they don't know how, but they know what happened with Black Dog, and they feel so bad about it and so sorry that they're there to help. And even Uncle forgets his pride, forgets how angry he was, and is like, I will take this thing to the top of the hill myself if I need to. And they all are there. It's just a sweet moment to help Windrider and Moonshadow with their dream of flying. So we read about them like loading up Dragonwings and how difficult it was, and pushing this really heavy machine up to the top of a super steep hill. So I love the last line at the top of page 299 where we left off yesterday, where it says, "It did not matter whether father flew or not. It was enough that the company had come." And so that shows Moonshadow that, like, I don't even care if this goes well or not. Like, these people are our people. They're our friends. They're our family. And they're here for us. And it's such a special thing. So let's see how the book ends. Let's continue reading on page 299. I do not know how, but we managed to get Dragonwings to the top of the hill. For a long time, nobody said anything. We were all too busy trying to get back our wind. It was a good time, too, just to admire the view, each man with his own thoughts as he looked out at the great sweep of bay. The winds began rising from the bay waters, racing over Oakland and sweeping low over the hissing winds, which nodded back and forth in great shimmering waves of gold. Father buttoned up his coat against the chill. "The horoscope book said this is a most auspicious day," he told Uncle. "I looked it up before we left. I think the book was right. Just feel those winds." "The book better be," Uncle said, "or the only one who will enjoy this day will be the mortician." Lefty had sat off a ways on top of his coat, which he had spread over a rock. He shaded his eyes. "Someone is coming," he called. We saw the heavily clothed figures tromp up the hill. Miss Whitlaw's face lit up when she saw all of us gathered on the top. "Thank goodness," she puffed. "I thought we were going to be late." Beside her, helping to support her arm, was Robin, also coated, scarved, and booted against the cold damp of the morning. I suppose they figured to shed everything when it got hot later. Father came down the road and took Miss Whitlaw's other arm. "How you know we flying?" "Oh," Miss Whitlaw said gaily, and glanced at Uncle. "A little birdie told me." "Did you tell them?" Father demanded of me. "No, sir. I kept my promise. I don't know how they found out. But what does it matter? Your flying is as much theirs now as it is yours." Father stood for a moment with his hand on Miss Whitlaw's elbow, but finally he grunted, "I guess it is." Miss Whitlaw had not understood our conversation, but she could get the meaning of it just from Father's angry tone. "Now, you just blame a snoopy old lady, Mr. Lee. I just had to know what was wrong. So I had my employer, who knows your landlord, call him and find out what was the matter. And then I got hold of your friend, Mr. Deerfoot, over in the city, and he gave a message to your uncle for him to call me up." "You actually used an electric talker?" Father asked Uncle in disbelief. I'll admit that they can be convenient, Uncle shrugged. And so we worked out everything between us, Miss Whitlaw said. Father grinned down at Robin. Good thing you got here. I wonder how we going to fly without one of my helpers here. We untied Dragonwings then, and eased it down the ramp by sheer muscle power. Then, lifting, pulling, and pushing, we rolled it to the crest of the hill. Robin tapped one big, bulging coat pocket. We brought a cordial to warm you. She slid a large bottle out of her pocket. That very, very thoughtful, Father said. He uncorked the bottle and took a sip. Now that's a righteous wine. He passed it to Uncle. Here, old man, this should drive the chill out of your bones. Uncle sipped the cordial. I'll race you around the hill and back again. He handed the bottle to the rest of the company. Even Robin and I got a sip. Then Father clapped his hands together nervously. Well, it's time to start. With a nod to Robin and me, he headed for Dragonwings. Father had left about 30 feet between Dragonwings and the crest of the hill, where it sloped sharply for some 100 feet before opening on the ruin of the Esperanza estate and our barn. And then the hill dipped sharply again until it came to rest in the flatlands below. We all marched around in the area in front of Dragonwings, tramping the weeds down so the ground would be fairly level. Then Father coiled up his cue into a tight bun behind his head and pinned it there. Robin took her place before the left propeller with her hands resting on the blade. I took my place beside the right propeller. Father himself lay belly down on the bottom wing. With his left hand, he grabbed hold of the frame. With his right, he took the front rudder controls. He pulled back on the controls and the front rudders tilted upward. He pushed forward and they tilted downward. Then Father shifted his hips to the left. The rear vertical rudders twisted to the left and the wings curled slightly as if they were alive. Father shifted his hips suddenly to the right, and the rudders shifted to the right, and the wings warped again. Father straightened, and the front and rear rudders and the wings again. The wind drummed at the canvas over the wings. The sky seemed alive and waiting. All right, Moonshadow, Robin, Father said. We both pulled down at the propellers and backed away. The motor beside Father coughed into life, turned over, and caught. The bicycle chains clinked musically as they turned the propellers. The wings began to vibrate, and you could feel the life begin to course through Dragonwings. Robin stepped back, and I ran around behind Dragonwings to join her. We were both exhilarated in the wind from the propellers, which rippled across the grass. Suddenly, the wind had competition here on the hilltop. The flags on the front rudder stiffened, and we could now see the eyes painted on the flags. It was as if Dragonwings had finally woken. Dragonwings lurched forward, bumped, stopped, and lurched forward again, like some great lumbering beast coughing itself as it got up out of bed. Father gripped the frame of the wing tightly with his left hand and pulled back sharply with his right, so that the front rudders angled skyward. Dragonwings rolled toward the steeply slanting hillside. The wooden wheels made crisp crunching sounds as they crushed the weeds. Dragonwings seemed to teeter for a moment, balancing on the very edge of the hillside. I wondered if Dragonwings were simply going to roll down the hill. Robin crossed her fingers. Silently, I asked Grandfather to help us. Suddenly, the wind blew even harder up the hillside. The grass all over the hill hissed even louder, like one giant snake. The nose of Dragonwings suddenly tilted up like some bird scenting the wind that would carry it home. The wind roared over the hilltop, seeming to gather beneath the wings. The canvas of the wings bellied upward, taut and swollen and eager. Dragonwings seemed to leap into the air about 5 feet and hang suspended. I held my breath. I saw Father twist his hips to the right, and the wings began to curl and the rear rudder curved to the right. Slowly, ever so slowly, Father began to bank in that direction. He had controlled his flight. He was free in the sky. Everyone cheered spontaneously. Father turned a leisurely circle over the hilltop, coming back toward us. In his traces, Red Rabbit stamped and snorted, so that Handclap had to run over and quiet him down. I raced beside Dragonwings for a moment, my legs pumping, my head dizzy, my heart filled with pride. Father, you did it! You did it! Father turned his head. There were a few strands of hair that had slipped down over his eyes, but the wind of his passage blew them away from his face again. He grinned and winked. Then he passed me. His wings brushed the grass tops, and then the left side of his wings dipped dangerously toward the ground, but he steadied Dragonwings with a shove of his hips. Dragonwings rose into the air as Father completed his circle and headed down the hillside toward the bay. I plunged down the slope after him. I could hear the others pounding behind me. Robin shouted for me to wait, but I ignored her. My momentum carried me recklessly forward. Once I nearly fell, but I caught myself with my hands and scrambled on. By the time we had reached the bottom, where the garden stood along with our stable, Father had already reached the road that had marked the end of the Esperanza property. He began to turn back over the orchards toward the garden. He was flying as high as 20 feet now, and the sun, gleaming through the painted canvas, made the wings seem like living flesh. It was as if he were no longer a man, but truly a dragon again. We watched him fly for perhaps 4 minutes around the Esperanza estate while we stood knee-deep among the flowers. "Look at him," Uncle shouted. He was as excited as a little boy. "Look at him! Just look!" "But how is he to come down?" Lefty asked. Uncle laughed. "Tell this man how he is to come down." "He'll land back on the hilltop," I added. "More or less." "More or less?" Uncle asked, puzzled. "We hope without cracking up the flying machine." "Oh," was all that Uncle said. He began scratching anxiously at the back of his neck. "Whom do you ask to help the aeronaut? The winds? The dragons?" "All of them," White Deer said. But we never did get to see whether Father would land all right or not. Father had just completed another circuit of the estate and was banking to the left over the fences, so his nose at the time was pointed towards the hillside. I heard a shrill, high, singing sound as the bolt that held the right propeller to the frame snapped. Horrified, I saw the propeller spinning away from Dragonwings in a lazy arc. The right side dipped dangerously. Father cut the motor and twisted the rear rudder hard to the left, tilting the front rudders upward so that the wind lifted the right side even more. Dragonwings straightened itself. It was deadly silent now in the garden. Father told me later that he had hoped to glide to a landing, but by now he had come close to the hillside. I saw him twist violently to the left in his hip cradle, trying to turn even farther to the left, away from the hill. Too late. The next moment seemed to take forever. I watched helplessly as Dragonwings started to turn, but the right side of its wing brushed the hillside. The wooden frame of the right wing snapped in a dozen places. Broken wood poles ripped through the canvas as it flapped upward. The left wings rose leisurely until they were almost straight up, And then Dragonwings leaned forward and burrowed nose first into the hillside. The body of Dragonwings swung back and forth drunkenly and then hung at an odd angle. I raced toward Dragonwings, feeling as if I had been betrayed. Somehow, after we had lavished so much time and effort and money on it, it should never have let one of its bolts snap and destroy itself and maybe kill Father. Father had been thrown clear of Dragonwings and lay on his back. I took his wrist. He still had a pulse. Puffing, Uncle joined me. It was surprising that he could run at all, let alone outdistance the others. It must have been, as Uncle's always said, there was a lot of life still left in his old beat-up body. Uncle dropped to his knees beside me, and with delicate hands felt Father's bones. The others gathered around, catching their breaths. Finally, Uncle straightened and looked around, relieved. I think his right leg is broken, and maybe 2 of his right ribs. That's all. You mean he'll live? I asked. For now, yes, until he tries his next flying machine. Uncle shook his head. What did he say? What did he say? Robin demanded. Father's all right, I said. We cannibalized Dragonwings to make a stretcher for Father out of the wooden poles and canvas. Uncle and White Deer set his leg. There was plenty of wood for that, and we bound up his sides tight with some odd lengths of cloth. Miss Whitlaw sent Robin after a demon doctor. By the time she got back with one, Handclap had gotten the wagon down from the top of the hill and driven it into the meadow. We had lifted Father onto the wagon and taken him straight into the stable. Uncle had also sent the company back to the hillside to clean up the wreckage, so it was all piled into the wagon. That way, there would be no embarrassing questions to have to answer. After the doctor left, we waited for Father to wake up. To occupy ourselves, we made pots and pots of tea. I wish, Miss Whitlaw said as she sipped her tea, that I had never had my employer begin making inquiries. I don't think Father would have wanted it any other way, I added. Neither do I. It just had to be. Father stirred then and groaned and sat up, leaning on his elbows. He winced and looked at his sides. What's broken? Only a leg and some ribs, no thanks to you, Uncle snapped. It could have been your head or your back, you know. Yes, I got some tea for Father. Dragonwings is a wreck. We'll have to build another one. Father sipped his tea and set the cup down carefully on the dirt floor. Would you be disappointed if we didn't? Sir? I'm not going to build another Dragonwings. When I was up there on it, I found myself wishing you were up there and your mother with you. And I realized I couldn't have the 2 of them together, my family and flying. And just as I saw the hill coming at me, I realized that my family meant more to me than flying. It's enough for me now to know that I can fly. But what about becoming a dragon? Ah, well, there's more to being a dragon than just flying, Father said. Dragons have immense families, too. It would be nice to live long enough to see my great-grandchildren. And it may be that my final test is to raise a brood of superior women and men. Humph, Uncle said. Maybe that crash knocked some sense into you. Maybe it did. Father leaned over from his mat and picked up his tea again, moving very slowly because of his bandaged sides. Uncle glanced at White Deer and Handclap. It'll make it easier to suggest what we were thinking of then. I think we could use a level-headed partner. Father shook his head. You know what I'd do if I were a real partner instead of just a paper one like I am now. Though we had left the company, Father had stayed a partner on paper so that he could keep me. Uncle rubbed the tip of his nose. Well, I wouldn't approve of your bringing your wife over here. But then I never thought I'd be friends with a demoness, nor see a man fly through the air. I will admit that I may not be right in everything. Uncle held up a warning hand to us all, but don't get the idea that I'm wrong in everything. Father still hesitated. Lefty has been with the company longer. He's already a partner, Handclap said. They let me buy in for what I had, Lefty explained. That was about $800, but I have a full $1,000 share. But I don't even have $1 to my name, Father said. I'll lend you the money, Uncle said. $1,000? Father rubbed his chin. At what percent? Uncle threw up his hands. What kind of a man do you think I am? I won't charge you any percent. That way, when I face the judges of the dead, I can say that I did my best to make up with you. White Deer spread his hands. If you can perform the miracle of flying, Uncle can perform the miracle of making a loan without any interest due on it. You're being too generous, Father protested. It's time to see that the company can carry on without us, Uncle said. White Deer, Handclap, and I won't be living forever. I held my breath. Father turned and winked at me as if to say, what can we do? To Uncle, Father said, we accept, and thank you all. I knew I spoke for Father and me when I said, and Uncle, we hope that you and White Deer and Handclap come as close to living forever as the three superior men can. And then I started to translate our wonderful news for the Whitlaws. We heard about Black Dog much later, when his coffin was shipped down to us. He had fled north to Sacramento. Poor Black Dog never even lived to spend the money that he took from us. He was found in an alley with his throat slit and his wallet stolen, even before he could make it to an opium den. Uncle locked himself in his room for one whole night, and then the next day came out as cantankerous as ever. I think the reason Uncle had originally been so strict with Father was that he thought of Father as his spiritual son. He hoped that Windrider would be everything that Uncle had once wished Black Dog to be. And like any parent with a child, Uncle was hurt and angry when Windrider did not behave as Uncle wanted. But then, with Dragonwings, Uncle came to accept the fact that he was not always right. Father and I moved back into the company's new, sturdy building. It took several months for Father's broken bones to mend, and he was always to get aches in them during our cold and rainy winters. During that time, we never lost contact with the Whitlaws. I had only to go next door to the cigar maker and use his electric talker to call them up. Every Sunday, I walked down to the ferry building. Sometimes I caught a boat over to Oakland to spend an afternoon with them. Other times, I met the Whitlaws as they came over. I won't say that Miss Whitlaw and Uncle became the best of friends, but they came to like each other as much as two such different people could. It was not until the next summer that Father got the paperwork straightened out and the proper demon officials bribed, and then he sailed for the Middle Kingdom to bring back Mother. He sailed on a Saturday, so I was able to see the Whitlaws on the very next day. Robin and I were sitting outside on the lawn swing behind the house where she and her aunt worked. The house was on a hillside, with the swing about 30 feet below it. Penny for your thoughts? Robin said. You'd be paying too much. No, really. What were you thinking? I was thinking how lucky I am. I knew there were plenty of problems still ahead of me. I had not seen my mother for something like 7 years, and I knew we would have to adjust to one another. And then there were the problems of my taking on more responsibility in the company. Tons of problems. And while I was not about to dismiss them as little ones, I was not afraid of them. I knew that I could meet them with the same courage with which Father had pursued his dream of flight and then given it up for the same courage with which Mother had faced the long separation from us. I think I'm lucky too, Robin said with a sigh, and looked out at the beautiful view before us. And then Miss Whitlaw came out of the kitchen onto the back porch. There's some fresh baked cookies for anyone who's willing. Robin turned to me with a grin. I haven't had a good race in a long time. Neither have I said. But she was already running up the hill while I was getting up. She won, of course. And that is Dragonwings. I hope you guys enjoyed this book as much as I do. It is seriously such a beautiful story. It's so exciting when we finish a book. We have lots of feelings, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. That's Dragonwings, everybody.